Alrighty. Okay, there we go. Got the GoPro sorted. So, my answer to the classic question has always been, it's the wrong question. It's not belts or lockers. I'm sorry, chains or lockers. It's chains and lockers. So I'm locked front and rear. You can see the snow's not particularly deep, but you can also see I can stand on it. So if you're familiar with driving in snow, that means I'm on light powder on top of melted, refrozen snow. Trusty shovel. So I didn't even get the trailer off the highway before my truck stopped. And these are pretty decent snow tires. So I played around a little bit with the shovel, hit it again, front and rear lockers going, and I got the trailer off the road. As soon as I popped these chains on, which takes quite a while if you decide to put your chains on after you're stuck, you roll forward like a foot to latch them, and yeah, I immediately move forward. Like I say, at least in this instant, the chains were absolutely phenomenal compared to good snow tires and lockers. And I was a little bit beached, you can kind of see there, but not fully beached. And the trailer was a little bit beached too. So again, it's not entirely fair to the lockers and the snow tires, but the same conditions, popped on the chains, and I immediately moved forward. If you're wondering what that roar is in the background, that's the ARB compressor that powers my front locker, or I should say engages my front locker. And that's kind of how I test whether that seal is failing. I've only had it on there for a few months, and that's one of the ways you can tell if your seal is good, is how often your compressor cycles. One last tidbit. Yeah, I didn't bother pulling the traction boards off. They can be helpful in something like this, but right there is where I need to park. Later I'm going to drive down that hill. So yeah, I don't want to be doing traction boards every 2 feet. So we'll see how it works out. All right, well, that took quite a bit longer than I wanted. Obviously, I haven't set up camp, but thanks to tire chains and whatnot. I actually forgot and left that empty tub up there just while I was moving around. So I took some stills, some creative use of the high lift jack. Obviously, I didn't want to keep moving the trailer around, so I actually used the high lift jack to lift the tire up and then put the leveling blocks underneath it. The trailer is reasonably level. So I'm going to relax for a bit, set up the solar panel in the rooftop tent, and take the tub off the top of my traction boards there. But that wasn't so bad. So major lesson learned there when you're in this type of snow, which looks very misleading, right? You're like, oh, that's no big deal. No, really, it's actually quite deep. Not super deep, but enough that you can't see it anymore. But coming in, I was really dragging my undercarriage protection. You can sort of see it down there. And the truck was really doing nothing despite good snow tires, lockers front and rear, because I had the trailer with me, so even if the belly of the trailer never dragged, but that's still a lot of rolling resistance and weight when I was going uphill or just even going downhill, just pushing it through a separate track in the snow, because the width of the track in my truck and my trailer are completely different. So yada, yada, yada. As people always say, if you're smart and you know what you're doing, I think I'm covering up the microphone with my thumb here, probably not good. If you know what you're doing and you anticipate it, you put the chains on before you drive in the snow. When I saw, there's a little bit of snow, I didn't think it was any big deal, so I just drove in there. All I really cared was to make sure I didn't miss the entrance and drove into the ditch, which I did do many years ago in a little Wrangler TJ. But the long and the short of it is I got myself up to about where you see all the digging and whatnot. I dug myself out, moved forward like 2 feet. All right, dug around the tires, put the chains on. Took me a little effort since it was already in the snow. Good thing I had a shovel. And once I put the chains on, it was just stupid. I mean, it wasn't like I just drove. It was like jerk, 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 as the links of the chains bit. So you could really feel the chains working. Every time the links of the chain came around the tire, it pulled the truck. And just, real low speed, jerk, 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 and back and forth, back and forth. I was going to back the trailer up here. Yeah, that would have been a full day job. So I just pulled it straight, walked around, and then realized that pulling it in forward was better. That way my tent will open toward the woods and not toward the street. Now that's where I normally camp, down there. This trip is to mark an easement and start clearing the easement to where our acreage is. But in the meanwhile, and this is all family land, so they always let me camp there in the clearing anyway. I think with the chains, absolutely no doubt I could have gotten a trailer to the usual spot and blah, 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 but I'm here to get some work done, not to fight with the trailer. So, should be a fun trip.
So I'll just narrate over a few of these stills that I took while I was setting up camp. You can kind of see some of the deep ruts. They don't really show up that well in the camera, but it was quite a struggle until I put on the tire chains to get the trailer in position. I then used my high lift jack both to manipulate the tongue and in this case to lift one side of the trailer to level it. I obviously didn't want to be maneuvering back and forth. Then you can kind of see how camp starts to take shape as I get all the tables and whatnot set up. I also have a nice setup now with my buddy heater and a stove fan to keep the tent cozy.
Okay, so I've kind of messed around this morning. I've almost got everything set up. I've been heating some water to melt the ice in my non-potable jerry cans. My potable jerry cans generally do okay on these trips because I got those insulating blankets. I haven't yet found the limit. I just put it in there at, room temperature, put the jacket on it. When I leave, it's been below freezing the entire time. It was about -3 Fahrenheit as I drove up this morning. Temperature's going up to about 30 Fahrenheit today. But I've never had a problem with those freezing. Those guys, though, turn to ice before I even get here if the trip's below freezing. Now, to heat the tent. That's an idea I got from playing with sticks. That is like a little wood stove fan. It is not battery powered. It runs off the thermoelectric effect. There's my little carbon monoxide detector. I used to be very sparing in how I ran the buddy heater because the spot just above it would get so hot, I was worried. So I'd run it for 20 minutes, get dressed, whatnot. This trip, I'm going to push it a little harder because with that little fan, at least testing it in the garage, you get absolutely no heat just above it. I mean, not like it's cold or something, but it does not allow any excess heat to accumulate there. Now, if you're wondering, is that a lot of bedding? Yeah, that's pretty much every bit of bedding I have, but it's going to be brutally cold this trip. I think it's actually not supposed to be as bad as last night. I don't think it's going to get below 0 Fahrenheit, but, if the propane bottle runs out, whatever. And I do have spare propane, but, like I say, I bring a ton of bedding because I use a trailer and I can. So I'm just going to zoom in a little closer here. You can kind of see the heater buddy and the fan. I've got a separate video kind of showing where I got that idea. I got the idea from playing with sticks, who I believe got it from someone else. And if you're wondering, am I going to put sheets down or anything on a trip like this in winter by myself, I usually don't. Okay, just a little bit more to do. I'm going to take the fridge out of the back. I think this time around I'm just going to stick the fridge on the table. Just because there's so much snow and ice, I really don't want to try and put a tarp down on the ground. Should work fine. Again, I'm just boiling some water there to melt the jerry cans. So I still got the fridge in the back of my truck. I'll pull it out, and I think that's just about it for how much setup I'm going to do on this particular winter camp. Well, it's already about 2:30 in the afternoon. Heating up a little more water. I only put on my kind of snow boots. And I'm finally going to walk down here. See how confident I am that I can drive down with my chains on the truck. Whoa. Well, good thing I paused there. Yeah, I sank about knee deep right there. So the other challenge here is trying to remember where exactly underneath this the road is. So I'm going pretty deep. I think I'm all the way down. Yeah. It's not quite knee deep. But given the depth of the hill, it's going to be interesting. This is just about knee deep, which means I'll be dragging the bottom of the truck the whole way. All right, and then it's not. So it's really just a drift right there. So I think if I come down, I can make myself a path. And this is what I remembered last time I was here. Down here out of the wind in the forest, just not as much snow. So I can see I'm going to have a running start up and down that hill. I want to make sure that I can do what I need to do down here, which honestly is looking pretty good. I saw a couple of concerned looking deer. You can judge by the tracks. These lumber piles have probably ended up providing shelters. Quite a few varmints and critters. I may risk it, I may not. Yeah, the snow really varies from nothing to, I'm going to call that maybe, I don't know, 1.5 feet. It's not quite really knee deep, just kind of high shin deep. And there are folks, it's not like I'm in remote Montana or something. There are neighbors that I could ask for help, although they might think I'm kind of stupid. And really with the shovel, it's just a question of how much time it would take me to dig out, and not whether I could dig out. So right up there is where I usually try to camp. It's just not a very long walk. But here in the afternoon, before it rains tomorrow, I think is when I would like to try to get the truck down here and back up a couple of times to have the confidence that I can get in and out. Now, we don't properly have the GoPro mounted, but I have talked myself into that after having the tire chains on here and going up 3 or 4 times so that I can blast in this deep snow, get to the not deep snow at the bottom, and make my way back up. So, either success or a lot of shoveling. Here goes. I really needed the weight of the truck to sustain my momentum there. I thought it was going to bounce over toward the lip of the drive. Now, I already walked this, so I know the snow is not too deep right here. So I know I can kind of move around. But the real challenge is, can I get back up without a ton of shoveling? All right, here we go. My ruts are established. The good news is they'll keep me in a straight line. Question is, how much speed do I really need? I'm going to back up a little farther here because I really think I need to get max speed going up that hill. And the other good news is, soon as I let off the gas, I'm stopping, so no need to worry about too much momentum. Here we go. Yeah, so I bumped the phone. It looks like it turned itself off. As you can probably tell, yeah, I made it. Did have a little, the ram mount's a little close to the steering wheel, so yeah, yippee-ki-yay moment. But yeah, man, with the chains on this truck, it's unbelievable what it can do. All right, I'm going to switch the phone to Gaia. Run around with the GoPro. I'm actually now going to be able to do what I came out here to do, which is try to identify some property lines. But only casualty, at some point in this adventure, I tore off one of my back mud flaps, which is okay. I mount them with plastic body anchors for the precise reason that, you know, obviously it's an off-road truck, and when things get hairy, I want the little plastic fasteners to rip out or snap, which is exactly what they did. The weird thing, I can't find the mud flap. It's got to be within 20 feet here. I wonder sometimes if this is why people lose traction boards, because they get buried in snow. So I think I have a pretty shrewd guess. I accidentally backed up in the wrong line, hit an earth berm under the snow, felt my back end stop, pulled forward. I've got to believe at that point the tire chains grabbed the mud flap and ripped it off, but I can't see it anywhere near there. I think it just got pushed deep in the snow. Well, no soon enough. Now that I know I can go back up and down the hill, I can get to where I want to start using Gaia GPS to walk some property lines. Okay, so one of the reasons I need the tire chains, this is stock suspension height vehicle. So you can see as I drove in, there's still powder in my ruts. And I had walked this, so I knew where it got deep. So I built up speed, just kind of kept hard at it, which is hard because there's two big ruts right in there. So I knew I'd be bouncing those. Fortunately, I have driven this terrain without the snow. Over there is the land that I want to walk. I'm going to go ahead and turn the truck around, make sure it's in a good spot where I can build up some serious speed on the trip back. But again, those chains work the entire way. You can see stock suspension height truck, even with independent front suspension. You can see my skid plates in my rear differential leaving an impression in the snow the entire way. And right back there again, that's the hill that I climb when I get out of here. Okay, I have like zero idea how well this is going to come out. I figured why not let the vertical orientation of the iPhone record my attempt now to engage the front locker, attempt to blast back out of the clearing here. It'll be quite challenging, but you know it's already so. I think it's fine as long as I keep up my speed. Let it rip. Really feel those chains bite when you get toward the top. I'm going to tell you, it makes it. But yeah, it gets a little interesting there as you're about to emerge. I'll go ahead and pull up to the street just to see if I drop that mud flap out here somewhere. Alrighty, well, it's been a heck of a trip so far. So I'll close this out with just a few stills taken around camp. The first couple are just a simple tarp system I set up that served very well. The weather unfortunately consisted of a lot of freezing rain, so I'm glad I did get that set up in place. You can kind of see where I just kind of hang out in the deep snow. This blue tarp over my trailer, I finally came up with a simple way to keep my gear dry when it does rain. I did build a fire, but I learned a valuable lesson about building a hot fire in a fairly deep fire pit hole in frozen ground. Even after clearing away the snow, the water in the ground melted and basically flooded the hole and smothered the fire. But it was still an absolutely wonderful trip. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, just a few simple pics and videos of some fun winter camping in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I am definitely looking forward to many more trips this spring and summer, and then on to the future years on some beautiful lakefront acreage up on the Stonington Peninsula.